Hey, this is Todd. Recently, I had an opportunity to sit down with our district attorney, Robert Turner Jr., and have a lengthy conversation with him about a number of issues that are important to our area, to the Black Belt in general, the 4th Judicial District more specifically, and even more specifically, Dallas County and the Selma area. I've divided the hour and 15-minute long interview into segments so that it'll be easier to watch. So this will be your first segment of the interview with Robert Turner Jr.
We've been in office now for 20 months.
Yeah, okay. And I remember when we first talked, when you first took office, there was a lot of, I guess, just say disorganization within the district attorney's office that you said was a problem that needed to be addressed immediately. Let's talk about that first. How is that coming along? The backlog of cases and whatnot, is that getting resolved?
Yeah, it is. It's always going to be a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
When I first took office, I was new prosecutor coming over from the defense side,
Right.
and we inherited a lot of cases that had not been presented to grand jury, which is one stage of the criminal process.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, when a person is charged with a felony, the case begins in district court, and every defendant is entitled to what we call a preliminary hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So after the preliminary hearing is held, the case is bound over for consideration for a grand jury.
Right.
And grand juries are that's the place where indictments are
Right.
actually handed down.
I understand.
So the problem that we ran into is that there were just stacks and stacks of cases that had not yet gone to the grand jury. And we started a real intensive process of reconvening grand juries on a regular basis. So we have had a series of grand juries, over the past 20
Mm-hmm.
months, and we've indicted, a number of cases. We still haven't, of course, caught up. The 2023, 2024 cases, not all of those have been indicted, and there are still some older ones
Mm-hmm.
that have not been indicted, but we tried to focus primarily on the homicides,
Mm-hmm.
the attempted murders, the sex cases, and those offenses, because we definitely wanted to make sure we got those through. And then, out of consideration for our local businesses, there were a number of retail theft cases.
Oh, wow.
With Walmart being one of the main
Mm-hmm.
victims,
Yeah.
Dollar General one of the secondary main victims.
Wow.
And we noticed that there were a number of cases that were made. However, a lot of those cases had not been indicted.
Right.
So in order to allow people to feel safe from just not violent crime, but also our business owners need to feel safe as well and feel like something is being done. So we prioritize those as well. So what has happened as a result of that is a number of people have been having to come to court on the circuit level and face charges that were initially picked up in 2016 coming forward. Cases that might have been older, and people thought that the system might have forgotten about them.
Right.
They weren't forgotten about. It's just that we had to put a structure in place to where we could start holding ourselves accountable for what our job is. And we've just made a dedicated effort to try to do that bit by bit.
And that's one of the things that we had spoken about when we talked when you first took office, that one of the problems in not just the county but the whole circuit is that so many cases, especially Dallas County, so many cases were not going to trial, that these offenders were repeating their offenses because they were not afraid of any repercussions. Do we see that changing at all?
Yeah, I think that's changing considerably. We have tried a number of cases, not just in Dallas, but also in Bibb, also in Wilcox, and in Perry, and in Hale County as well. And the thing about trial is everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And of course, the state has the burden of proving that. And when you have cases that are close or where a defendant maintains their innocence and wants a trial, those cases don't just go away by themselves. People are not just going to say, okay, I've been in jail so long and now I just want to plead to something. That's not how it's designed to work. So what we've been doing, and the judges have been really good about this, I've got to give them credit for this, is we've been trying to come backwards forward, meaning, murder cases that occurred in 2016, 2017, 2018 are the ones that are the priority cases to move, because it is unfathomable for a crime victim's family, let's say in the instance of a murder case, to have lost a loved one in 2017 or 2018, and now we're in 2024.
And still no closure.
There's no closure. And that's not,
terrible.
That's not fair to them.
Right.
But it's also not fair to the person that's been accused of doing it.
Sure.
A lot of times my favorite word that I use when I do this job, when I took this job, is allegedly. So I always say that.
We use it a lot in newspaper and radio too. So,
right. So a defendant is the person that is charged with doing something. They have been alleged to have committed a crime.
Exactly.
So what we're trying to do is to remove the alleged aspect of the case and relabel it as either guilty or not guilty of the crime.
Exactly.
As opposed to have allegedly committed the crime. So I've seen some progress. We've definitely had a case go to trial for each of the last 4 trial terms.
Oh, okay.
Whereas prior to that, there were numerous jury terms, jury sessions where people would be here, in Selma, or they would be present in Camden, Marion, and Greensboro, and Centerville. And the jury would come, but there would be no cases to try this week.
Yeah.
Because they would either be continued, or they have late settlements.
Right.
So we've been settling cases during the same time that we've tried the ones where you've reached impasse.
I see.
So that has been a good way of, attacking the backlog, and increased grand jury, and put more cases on than used to be put on during the course of a year, so that we can have them in a place where we can settle them. The other thing that we did is that we, every organization needs some accountability. So one of the things that we've done, and I don't know whether we've discussed this previously or not, but one of the things that we've done is that we make sure that each case is assigned to a specific district attorney or an assistant district attorney.
Right.
So now there's no ambiguity once a case reaches the circuit court level as to who is handling the case. And that has worked well for the defense bar as well as victims. Because when they call the office now and they identify the case, then switchboard operators and our victim services officers know which lawyer to direct that call to.
Right.
And also our victim services officers, they deal directly with all victims of violent crime, property crimes, or what have you. If you're a victim of a crime, we have a victim services officer that is assigned to your case. So everybody now knows which cases they are responsible for.
I see.
And that has been a huge help. And that does not prevent us from helping one another out.
Certainly.
On different cases, but that has definitely, given us some accountability.
Yeah, and it also, I'm sure, it reduces confusion for not only victims but even for the accused. I mean,
that's right.
They know where to go to get answers and ask questions as well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before, but our everything works together, and that's one of the things that's one of the things we've been trying to enforce with our culture, is that everybody's job feeds into another person's job.
Right.
It's like what a VSO does directly affects what the attorney does. What the attorney does affects the VSO. Right.
It's got to be like a well-oiled machine.
That's right.
Part has to work.
We now have a full-time grand jury clerk.
Oh, okay.
And her dedicated responsibility is to work in conjunction with the district court and the district court clerk and the circuit clerk underneath Lenithia Bennett's. That's where the branches of government work together. But the grand jury clerk works. She works in conjunction awesome with them to find all of the cases. So we're getting lists of what else do we need to put on the grand jury.
I got you, yeah.
Right. So we've been able to do that as well. And that grand jury clerk has just been a wonderful position that we added because she's been working really diligently in bringing some order and some stability to
order and organization, so things move smoothly.
That's right. And it's not
efficiently.
Perfect. It's not perfect.
No
It's
system
not
is.
ideal.
But
we're not reinventing
still.
the wheel.
Right.
But we're starting to see some progress.
That's good. That's
right. So
now, one of the other things you had talked about before was everything. Well, nothing was on computer, but I believe you have solved that as well, haven't you?
Yeah, and I was just about to move into that.
Yeah.
And so what we do now is we're entering stuff into our case management database. And again, that's not reinventing the wheel, but it's something that had been in use in a lot of district attorneys' offices across the country. But we were fortunate because there's an actual Alabama company that has come up with a really good interactive software.
Oh, excellent.
That a lot of district attorneys' offices are using within the state. Great. So we started that software process and that integration in, I want to say March of 2023. And it has worked wonders. We're able to link cases, and that's how we'll know. Let's just say, for example, an individual gets arrested and charged with something today. Now, when we put his name or her name into the database, all of the other cases that they have pop up. And so let's say, for example, we type a name in, and then the cases pop up, and we notice that they've got 3 other pending cases. Then that lets us know this is a person who's out on bond. Now they have committed a new offense, and we can, in an instant,
allegedly committed an offense.
Allegedly, we can instantly go ahead and begin the process of filing a motion to revoke the bond.
I see.
And so,
but again, knowing that there are other cases pending
helps us.
Is the key to being able to do that. And again, and it goes back to taking the bad guy off the street. It's one more tool to help keep the bad guy from doing it again.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think is really important for citizens to understand. Because often what happens, the narrative goes out that this person is in jail without a bond, and all they did was steal something out of the store.
Right.
Whereas there's another person that's walking the streets who's been accused of shooting into an occupied vehicle.
Right.
Well, in the United States, you are entitled to a bond, on any case other than, except for capital cases.
Right.
A judge can set a bond even on a murder.
Sure, yeah.
It's harder now. You can make arguments because of the enaction of the Annias Law bill that passed. But just because you're charged with a crime does not mean you're automatically denied bond. However, bond is a privilege and not an absolute right. There are ways where if a person has shown that they cannot conform to the conditions that are placed upon them when they're out on bond, and one of those main conditions that you're not to be arrested for a new offense. So some of the people that are being held just because it's a theft case, or it's a possession of marijuana case, or it's a domestic violence case where you didn't shoot or what have you, it's a crime. And when you're out on bond, you are not supposed to continuously engage in criminal behavior.
Right.
Because if you do, then a judge can revoke your bond. And so we've been really active in trying to get the judges to see how important of a tool bond revocation is. Because some of the cases that we've been having difficulty resolving primarily involve multiple offenders. Well, single offenders with multiple pending cases.
Right. And I think you had even spoken to that last time we talked.
Yeah, we have
a lot of the
people.
crime are people from outside coming in over and over again.
Well, we have that, but a lot of the crime are people inside
over and over again
that are repeat offenders.
Yeah.
They are in the wrong place at the wrong time a whole lot.
A whole lot.
And I'm serious.
Yeah, I know it's not funny, but it's funny.
But it's, and so what we're trying to do is allow people to see that if a person keeps getting in trouble and they can't stay out of, law enforcement's way, then the least,
take them out
the least we can, hope to happen, from the judicial perspective, is if this person has been arrested 3 times, now what we've got is a guy or a girl that we would have to have 3 different trials with 3 different sets of victims, when that shouldn't happen. If you get arrested and you're fortunate enough to be granted bail, and then you commit another crime and you're not revoked on that crime, and then you commit another one, it puts a strain on the criminal justice system.
Right.
Because now you've got us trying to work out multiple cases. So we're trying to let the courts know as respectfully as we can and as professionally as we can, because we have to be prepared when we come to these bond revocations to let them know that nothing against this person.
Yeah,
they keep piling up cases.
Yeah.
And that's not a good look for anybody. No. And that's not even safe for that person.
And it's certainly not safe for society.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you'd mentioned murder. Let's talk a little bit about the murders in Dallas and in the surrounding counties.